Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. Today I bring back good friend of the show, Brandon Young. Hey Brandon, how you doing?
Hey, Danny. Thanks for having me again.
No worries. So where are you in Shenzhen? I know you're in China, but whereabouts are you in you're doing a factory visit at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm actually in Shantou, which is the toy city of the world, toy capital of the world. We have about 12,000 toy factories here.
Wow, that's interesting. So how long are you going to be in China for? Just for leading up to the Chinese New Year, or are you staying on longer?
Yeah, I'm staying on an extra week. I'll be here for another 2 weeks. I'm just basically, I'm trying to get about a week's worth of work done. I've got a close out with my employees. I have a party for them, and some things that I'm doing for them. They did a good job during Q4, and then we've got family with Jennifer's family in two different cities. So we're gonna go do Chinese New Year twice, and
Yeah.
then hopping on back.
Cool. Well, we're going to cover something slightly different. We're going to talk about indexing. There's been a lot of problems within the community. People are suffering, they may be visible for PPC, but they're losing organic indexing and stuff. I keep seeing it come up time and time again. I've got a few emails on it. I'm seeing it in the Facebook group. So I thought today we could address this and do a bit of a walkthrough so people could troubleshoot that. So can you talk from someone who's got a vast amount of products and stuff and seen this? You're in the $1 million seller group, and you've got your own private mastermind groups, etc. Can you talk to me about the lay of the land and what you're seeing at the moment?
Yeah, I think that just recently, and it turns out that, it happens. It's been happening anyway, like you said, where suddenly you've got a hero product where your best keyword is just completely off the radar for, and you're not even really ranked for it. Or you've been on page 1 forever. Now you're on page 3 and you just can't get it back. So we've been seeing that, but more recently we've been seeing a lot of dives, and we've diagnosed a couple different issues. The main issue that I think that we've diagnosed, and I shared this with my inner circle, and I'm happy to share it with you and your audience, is and we discussed it briefly, was the pipes. So by adding in those bars into the titles, it's actually throwing mixed signals towards Amazon's algorithm, and it's not going to index anything in your title. And it's really a fast fix. You just go back, rewrite your title. You can put a dash. You can put a capital I, even if you want to put something similar to a bar. Or just, you want to make it readable. So try to decipher between the thoughts and the different keywords. But just by doing that, you should start to see a re-indexing of some of those terms that you were having an issue with. Yeah. That's been the latest thing that I've noticed.
Cool. And just to on top of that, we discussed off call that I had an issue and I raised a ticket. It was in Germany back in 2016. I was having problems with auto campaigns. And as I understand it, I'm not a developer, that is treated like an operator, like an on or off. And so that was messing with the algorithm from a PPC point of view as well, and we was told to remove the pipes, and then the auto campaign started to work again. But bearing in mind, this is for PPC going back to 2016, and it goes back to that point again, is that it still seems to, in the US, UK, problem people are seeing is that they're indexing in terms of their keywords for running PPC ads, but organically is the issue. So what other problems, diagnoses that you can use to deal with this problem?
Well, I can talk about some of the, because there's treating the symptoms, and then there's the actual cause.
Yeah.
And I think people need to be aware that when they first create a listing, it's super, super important that you guys, when you first start launching a listing, that you're not confusing Amazon's algorithm. And one of the mistakes that I see a lot of people do is that they'll go out there and they'll start an auto and a broad campaign right away. And you have to understand that Amazon is their algorithm's trying to determine what you should be, where your ad should be showing, which keywords it should be showing on. And they don't know anything about your listing at this point other than the way you've written it. But you've got a lot of mixed signals in there, because you could have some long tail keywords, you could have a lot of different indicators.
Yeah.
So the best thing to do and how to solidify your indexing to your competitors would be to run a product targeting ad, and exact campaigns targeting your most relevant keywords.
Yeah.
If you get clicks, add to carts, and sales through those keywords or from your competitor's listing, then Amazon's going to map your indexing to those competitors.
Yeah.
And so if you don't set it up correctly in the beginning, what could end up happening is that you confuse Amazon.
Yeah.
And so they'll think you're selling product A when you're selling product B, and you'll never rank for the keywords that you need to that are actually relevant to your product. And that's probably the biggest problem I see.
Yeah, and I think people make the mistake when they run their auto campaign and they're using all the match types, and they're not working with just like close match. They're using complements, and they use it. That I think can help. Well,
100%. Yeah.
Push it over the edge, especially like a loose match. You've seen, and this is why it's important.
Yeah.
If you're going to run those, is you separate them out into their own campaigns. You run 4 of them for each of the match types, and then you control the budgets on the global level.
Yeah, 100%. And if you happen to get a sale through one of those like early on, and Amazon doesn't really know what you're selling, but they see that you make a sale, now they think you're selling something else. And so you kind of want to guide what you're getting added to cart with like what competitors you're being compared to, how you're making your sales in that first week, which is very crucial. It's actually your entire honeymoon period that's very crucial. But once you make a few sales, you get some indexing, and you start to see like you can track and reverse, like you could do a reverse ASIN on your own ASIN and see, okay, what does Amazon think I'm selling? Yeah. Another thing you can do is you just as an indicator is you can go in and try to create an auto or a broad campaign, or broad campaign more specifically, and then see what suggestions Amazon gives you. And if they're suggesting keywords that aren't relevant to your product, then you've screwed up somewhere, and you need to go back and probably start from square one and try to get that fixed. There's a couple of hacks as well. This isn't something that we like necessarily do, and not something I'm recommending, but I don't know if it's considered gray or black hat. But another thing, like we were talking about, if you could get added to cart with a competitor. So if you have a buyer list, or you have a list of loyal customers that are willing to add a competitor's product to cart and yours, but then just buy yours. Now, you're not doing it in a malicious way to try to hurt your competitors. Never do that. Yeah. But if you do that, then Amazon's going to map your indexing there as well. So that's really helpful in the first few days, as well.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. One thing I like to add as well is that other ways to test is that if you've got a piece of software that is tracking your listing history, one of the other things is whether it's done by Amazon internally as an algorithmic process of moving you to another category, or it's done through manual editors, or it's done maliciously. You want to be able to know whether you've been moved from one node to another, because that's going to determine the relevance there as well. So you could search within that node and find that you are not going to appear in there because that keyword, etc., won't work. So if you've got a history change software. I use, for instance, as an example, we don't promote products on no affiliate, but Seller Legend does a great job of that. And there are other softwares out there that you can look at. And it's the quickest way of diagnosing stuff as well, because all you got to do is look for the change history. The moment you can do, it highlights it in red or it highlights in green. Anything red shows you that changes and which date. So you can isolate and understand almost instantly, which sometimes can take a few weeks for you to understand after firing off emails or raising tickets, to seller support. And it's like when you're just going round and round in the chicken coop and just getting nowhere with it.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we've had it happen a bunch of times where competitors have changed categories, and then we've had it where Amazon has changed categories because they've decided that this entire subcategory no longer belonged under sports and outdoors. It should be under wireless. Yeah. And so they just kind of moved us over. And one of our first products that we were actually one of the first sellers of wireless chargers on Amazon. We were probably the number 2 or number 3 seller, and this is really early on in our first year of selling. And we were crushing it. We didn't know much, like we knew enough, but we obviously didn't know much. And so all of a sudden we go from selling 40 to 60 of these a day to 5 a day, and we have no idea why. We don't know about keywords really. Like we don't know what's going on. Like we see our PPC starts to perform poorly also. And so we call in and there's really no help from seller support, obviously. And it wasn't for a few weeks later until we realized that someone had changed our category in all of our notes.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about with...
It can be devastating.
What about in regards to keyword density? Now we know that, you know, there are an argument, whereas you don't have to keep repeating words within your listing. There's an argument that keyword density is helpful within Google, but then if you need to add backlinks built to, etc. But if you're trying to recover in terms of you're not indexing for a certain search term, like, would you look to increase the density of that keyword and then see if you can remap it that way, just to see if it comes back up in the search results?
So there's a couple of factors there, and we don't repeat. We haven't seen a benefit of repeating, and there's a couple of dangers of repeating. Yeah. We only repeat so much as it actually gives us additional keywords. So, like, if the phrase is a part of a broader phrase, then that phrase will be repeated. Yeah. So if I'm selling wireless chargers, and in my listing somewhere I want to do, like, you know, standing wireless chargers, and I'm still going to repeat wireless chargers because standing wireless chargers is there. Now, that's so much as we repeat. We try to just repeat the big keywords. Now, going in, and once you're having trouble with your indexing, even though it's in your title, what you're doing now is trying to get them to pick it up in a worse location. Now, we talked about in another episode where you get more credit for a keyword every time you make a sale if it's in your credit or if it's in your title, versus, you know, where you're adding it to try to get credit for it later. You're actually shooting yourself in the foot a little bit, because you're going to end up getting less credit for every sale later if Amazon does pick it up, and it's going to be harder for you to get back up to that top spot. You want the maximum credit in your title, so you're going to want to try to diagnose your title and those issues and make sure that it's entered back into your title, rather than getting credit for it in a place where you're going to get less credit. Yeah.
Also, as well, I would imagine if you're not running PPC on exact match on those search terms, another thing you do is to go hard for a couple of days there to see if you can get some sales for that search term, and see whether, you know, you should be looking at, like, measuring your position of your search term, depending on what software that you've got. There's loads of ranking tools out there, because that's one way of diagnosing. I know people argue, well, that's your rearview mirror, you don't really need to track keywords, but a reason for tracking keywords is to see if you are indexed or not indexed, or if there's a big drop, and that way you can isolate and deal with the problem. So what would you do in that case?
100%. Well? I don't know who advocates not tracking keywords. I think that tracking your keywords is one of the best things you can possibly do. Yeah. Simply because if you do see a drop in any type of keyword, then it's an indicator of whether your advertising is working or not. It's an indicator whether there's an issue, like you're saying, like, that you have to diagnose. It also could be that it could be an indicator that you need to turn on additional marketing that you don't always run. So like a soft relaunch type of marketing, whether it's Facebook into ManyChat, into a landing page, or rebate key, for example, and disclosure, I'm one of the owners there. I always have to say that. But so we always check our keywords, and we're trying to always make sure that we're in a comfortable position. But if you're running PPC, or you're starting a new PPC campaign, or your PPC starts to go sour, you'll notice that there's a direct impact, whether positive or negative, on your keyword ranks. Yeah. And then those keyword ranks are where you get your organic sales. And your organic sales are the ones that need to make up the majority of your sales to have a profitable product. So what we've seen over the last year is that you have a lot of people who, when they changed PPC to really make an impact on your keyword ranks, organic keyword ranks, which is like a newer thing in the last year, we noticed that there's a death spiral that you can get in where you'll have poor performing PPC. It'll start to make your keyword rank slide. You'll get less organic sales. So then you'll push harder on your PPC to try to get your organic ranks back, but it'll actually do the opposite, and you'll get worse. And now all of a sudden you're getting less. You're getting less organic, more PPC sales, and so that total cost of advertising keeps going up, which is that tacos number that we talk about. Yeah. And so you want your tacos for a good product to be around 10%. And it ends up going to 30, 40, 50, 60. And all of a sudden now you have no organic, and you've had a death spiral of a product that is now getting no organic or very few organic and mostly paid sales. Yeah. And you're not able to sustain a profitable product at that point. So the way to fix that is to do the opposite. You turn off the PPC. If it's performing poorly and converting, everything is about traffic and conversions with Amazon. And if you have a lower conversion rate than your competitors, you need to probably turn that PPC off to try to raise your overall conversion rate, to at least be as good or better than your competitors to stay ahead of them.
Yep.
And so you need to drive those sales maybe from somewhere else. Maybe you run zero PPC, but then you're running some off Amazon marketing, rebate key, ManyChat, Facebook ads, Google ads, whatever it is, but traffic that converts at a certain percentage so that you can raise that conversion rate.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've seen a lot of that with your agency where it's like you're better off with a lot of PPC off.
Yeah, obviously it varies. It's weird, isn't it? Because it goes down by category as well, and the amount of products that you're working with. Because if you've got clients that we have as well that may sell a product every other day, but they've got hundreds of SKUs. Do you see what I mean? And they've got a higher price. So it actually balances out in comparison to someone who sells 20, 30, 40, 50 units a day, if that makes sense. So it does require a different approach. But what you're saying is pretty much true in the traditional sense. If you've got the FBA approach, do you know what I mean? Like the Amazon FBA approach where you have a focus set like a products. Another question for you. Obviously, people go ahead and raise a ticket to support, to say they're not indexing and stuff. Now, we know the skill level of most support team, and it's a fight to get through the catalog and everything else for a lot of people. Do you think it's even worth raising the ticket to explain that you're not indexing? Or do you think it's just a waste of time?
I think if you're going to do anything with regards to seller support, you should call in, and then you should try to talk to either the team in the United States or the team in Costa Rica. Mm-hmm. Both of those teams are going to be better equipped and more knowledgeable about those different things, and might be able to lead you to do some things. Now, so we'll talk about a couple of the reasons that you could get de-indexed, and what I've seen is like there's another type of attack where people are doing contributions to your listing. So they'll actually use a flat file, and then they'll try to fill in they'll add your product to their own inventory. Yeah. And then they'll upload a flat file to contribute to your listing. Yeah. And they'll just try to contribute keywords that aren't relevant and different terms that aren't relevant in every single category, like every single column. And what that does is that anything that you haven't done as the main contributor, it gets added to your listing. Yeah. Now, sometimes this used to be before you have brand registry, but if you don't have brand registry, this still happens. If someone uses a vendor account and then they go in and they contribute to your listing, that becomes the dominant contributor. Yes, so now you've got keywords in your back end that you were ranked for. Now all of a sudden, and indexing for. Now all of a sudden they've contributed their own back end, which they've purposely made not relevant. Yeah. And your keywords have pretty much disappeared, but you don't see that because on the back end of your listing, your keywords are still there. And so it's really hard to diagnose a problem like that because it's only on the back end of the actual contribution listing, which you don't see. And so that's been a huge attack that I've seen happen to people as well. But can you,
from my understanding, to counter that, well, not counter it, but prevention rather than cure, if you haven't got it in your reports, request a listing report, then you'll download the listing report that gives you all the data that was in your listing, and then just fill out as much detail as possible. And in the areas that you can't think of putting content, maybe just stick a full stop or US term, a period in there. Then that way you take back, you start with the contribution. So if anyone then tries to do that further down the line and your listing hasn't been touched, at least you can do a prevention rather than a cure on it. Would that be right?
So it's a prevention only so far as that you have brand registry. If you don't have brand registry and you do it from a vendor account supersedes a regular account. Yeah. Now, only as of maybe 6 months ago, Amazon flipped it so that brand registered accounts and contributions supersede vendor contributions, because this was a really common hack that was being used by all the hackers out there. Yeah. Where they were just they were buying or hacking vendor accounts and going in and attacking all their competitors. So Amazon recognized the problem and finally flipped the contribution level so that if you are brand registered, this is one of the reasons it's one of the most important things you can do as a seller is to hurry up and get brand registered.
Yes. Makes sense. Cool. I think we covered quite a bit there. Is there anything you want to add before we have a little chat about you being at Seller Sessions Live on May 9th?
Yeah, I think one other thing that I'll do is like there's 2 other hacks that you guys can try if you're having serious issues with your indexing. Again, try to get the contribution report, try to see what is the actual listing contribution that's on there. You know, get brand registered, you can try to get rolled back from, you know, to a previous listing that was submitted. You can find out if anyone's made any contributions when you call in. Try to get to another team, a foreign team, not to India. And that'll be a big help for you because those people can look those things up and help you a little bit more, those catalog teams and captive teams, they're called.
Yeah.
The other thing you can do is to try to reset your honeymoon and reset your indexing. So there's one hack, and if this is desperate times, calls for desperate measures, you can delete all the content from your listing. So you create a flat file, you submit it with everything blank, you let it sit for 3 days, then you re-upload everything with another flat file with everything contributed in there. And then that should reset a honeymoon to an extent, as long as you change the dates in there as well. And it works the majority of the time, but not all the time, so it's not guaranteed.
Let's move on to Seller Sessions Live. So you want to make your London debut May 9th. We're also sorting out a workshop at the moment, just sorting out location and finalising a few things. I'll announce that in the future. So yeah, you're going to come to London, first time in Europe, right?
Yeah, my wife and I are super excited. She's super excited. The first time in Europe, first time that we're going to be there. We're going to spend an extra couple of weeks touring around. You know, I'm super happy that I'm coming out there.
Sounds good. Right, let's leave that there. Guys, Seller Sessions Live's brought to you by Frasio. If you want to buy tickets, we've got, I think it's 68 tickets remaining now. Click on the link below, and I'll see you again in the next few days. Take care, and thank you, Brand.